Good morning, everyone. April 5th here. I am Tim Anderson. Welcome to the latest Monday Musings. I'm here, bedhead, a little bit of bed beard. I did run a comb through it, so technically my beard is not exactly bed bearded right at the moment. But welcome to the latest episode of Monday Musings, the show where I talk about hmm, random stuff. This is a new juice that my wife got. I wasn't sure if I was going to like it. I'm not a big fan of pineapple juice, but this is like pineapple with some other stuff in it. That's quite tasty. Um, yeah, it's early. It's 6 o'clock. Had a late night last night, but we got to get up early this morning because I got to go grocery shopping here in a little bit. So I got to get this done before we go grocery shopping, and then off to the rest of the stuff that's on my list for the day. Let's jump in. First thing from this past week, I discovered this band called Faun, which is a German band, which I guess has been around since the late 90s. Um, and it's like I guess it's classified as like pagan rock, pagan folk rock. It's like medieval instruments that are played somewhat in a traditional sense, but also in like this medieval folklory kind of rock style. Very cool. I've gotten kind of hooked on them. That was all weekend. I think I've listened to every album they have now. Gotta say, I'm a big fan. And it's kind of cool when you dive down that rabbit hole of bands you might not have ever heard before, um, because when you find them and it's like it's good enough that you'll listen to more than one album or two albums or something. Um, it's one of those things where it just kind of triggers, and next thing you know, you spent the whole weekend listening to the music, which is cool. Because I don't if I come across a lot of music, and oftentimes it'll be like I'll find a few songs that I like, I'll find maybe an album or two from a band that I like, and then that's kind of it. And but these guys, I listened to the whole catalog, and I didn't really there wasn't a lot I didn't like. It's also one of those bands where you'll notice that there's just been huge lineup changes over the years. I think out of the founders, there's only one person left from the founding members, which made me it reminded me of bands like say never Nightwish has done that. There's only I think two of the original founders left, the guitarist and the lead singer, or not the lead singer, sorry, the songwriter and keyboardist and the guitarist, because they're on their third lead singer, and then the drummer quit a few years ago, and then the bassist just quit during the like end of this 2020. And then looking at like Jethro Tull, Ian Anderson is the only member that's still there from the foundation. Um, and yeah, but it's a good band. I think you should look into them and let me know what you think. I put a link to it in the Discord, or at least I'll put a link to one of the songs I found from them that got me started on that rabbit hole of the band. So if you haven't already, make sure to check the links below to head over to the Discord and see what we're talking about. Join us in the conversations there. Let's see here. Number two on my list. Oh yeah, this is a big one. So last week I dug into Solasta, and I think I might have talked about this in the last Monday musings because I picked up the game the Friday previous. I gotta say, this game has grabbed me by the nethers. I haven't played a game like this in a long time. I thought that Baldur's Gate 3 was going to be that game for me in the sense that every once in a while, and it's like maybe once a generation or so. I don't play games the way I used to when I grew up because there's so many games now these days. You have so many options and so much variety that I just like to play lots of different games. So, as an example, Assassin's Creed Valhalla is still on my PC, uh, PS4, sorry, and I've been playing that game since it launched, which was like last October, November. I don't really remember when that game launched, but I have yet to beat it. Um, I play it probably. I don't know, maybe 4 to 6 hours a week, maybe. Usually I only play it like on the weekends is a good sample. I played it yesterday morning for about 3 hours on Sunday morning. Chris was doing stuff, art stuff, and I just was like, well, if you're going to be busy with that, I'm going to go jump on the PS4 and I'll play it in between the other things I play, like Lord of the Rings Online and all these other things. But Solasta, I've played that a lot this last week. I probably put in a good 15 hours. I mean, I played it almost every day. Anytime I could find a square, square. This is proof. I haven't had coffee. I'm drinking juice this morning because I haven't brewed coffee yet. Um, it's a busy morning. I haven't had coffee, so my brain's not wiring right yet. Anyway, every spare moment that I had, I was playing Solasta. It's so good. There are things that I look at and I'm like, yeah, that's kind of indie, but who cares? It's fun. The jumping and climbing is amazing. The surprise mechanics are great. The way you can manipulate the environment is pretty amazing. The animation sequences could use some work. Like I said, I think the only thing that's lacking in that game, honestly, is the writing. The writing's not that good, but I can forgive it because the rest of it is so good. Like, it's a really good game. Uh, I did the character creation overview video last week, and then during my sessions last week, I've been recording clips and I'm putting together an overview video that I'll do. It might be this week, but it might be next week. I don't really have a timeline on it yet, but I'm 20 hours in, and I'm still coming across tutorials. Like, it's a deep game, or I'm finding that it's a deep game. And I know, like, when I bought the early access, they were like, "Oh, there's 10 hours of playable content." I feel like there's way more than 10 hours of playable content. But the same thing with Baldur's Gate 3. They told me 25 hours, and I got like 60 hours out of my first playthrough. But I'm really enjoying it. I'm also save scumming. I know a lot of people don't like to save scum. I do. I'm a big fan of repeating things. And then I'm on normal difficulty, and I've had, I think, 3 encounters where I've died, and they're long fights. So I mean, I get 15, 20 minutes into a fight and then die, and it's like, son of a bitch, and you got to reload and come back and redo it. And I know that that can be, you know, for some people that don't like to do that, but it's a thing where I'm not above save scumming. If I come across something where it's a little too challenging, or I've done something I would prefer to do it a different way, um, fight's just not going my way, you know. Anyway, I would, recommend it. It did go up in price to like its full retail value, I think. I think it's $40 or something. Um, but I still think it's worth the $40 full price. I think it's worth it. Writers and productivity. This is number 3 on my list, and I put question mark bragging. So I caught this on Twitter yesterday. Kevin J. Anderson asked this person, they're using this productivity tool for writers, where they like set a daily goal and then they track it. And this person they had an 8,000 word goal for the day, and they did like 9,500 words. And Kevin J. Anderson, I believe his tweet, I'm paraphrasing here, but the beginning was like, "Did you really hit 8K? If so, that's really impressive. I consider myself fairly prolific, and I've been averaging 4K a day for many, many years, with the rest of the day spent in editing." And the writer wrote back and said, "Yeah, I've been slacking for a while, but I'm in it now. I don't edit on my days. I just write. That's all I do. I'm really impressed with this other guy who did this podcast where he talks about having 25,000 word days." And that just got me thinking, like, Sanderson is probably the most prolific person I know, and he's talked about having like days where he does 8 to 10,000 words when he's really in the rhythm, when he's just really in the role. And I had previously had done this post on Patreon for productivity where I talked about Kevin J. Anderson because he uses dictation software and he shoots for that 4,000 a day mark. I consider myself fairly prolific as well. If I look at the total of what I do per day, it's probably in the 6 to 8,000 word bracket, but that's not just work on, books or things. That's emails, social media posts, Discord posts, you know, forum posts, writing, editing, all these things. If you combine all of the things that I do over a 10 to 12 hour day, sure, I'm hitting 8,000 words on a good day, maybe 10 on a super prolific day. But it just got me thinking about, you know, writers who focus so much on the word count that quality can suffer. Um, I would consider, I mean, look at super successful people like Stephen King. And he talks about, like, there was a great interview he did. Him and George R. R. Martin sat down together. And George R. R. Martin was sitting there going, how do you do it? Like, I don't know how you are so productive because, it's taken me 11 years to write the most recent Game of Thrones book. Um, but he was questioning Stephen King on how the hell do you do it? How do you be so productive? And Stephen King says, well, apart from the days when life gets you, when you got to go to the grocery store, you got to go pay bills, you got to go to the doctor, or things of that nature. He says, putting those days aside, he says, I try to write every single day. And he talks about, trying to get like that chapter in that, one time a day. And if you're looking at like the average chapter length or so on and so forth, I mean, he doesn't have a specific word count. I don't think he mentions in that particular video, but I know he's talked in the past. Like, I think it's in his on writing book. He says, you should shoot for 1,000 words a day and just do it every single day. And he does in an interview with George R. R. Martin. He talks about, if I'm focused on sitting down and getting, reasonably clean copy, I'm doing a reasonably good job of making something that's not going to need a lot of edits after the fact, then yeah, I mean, I'll sit down and do that every day. And he's talking about, basically, if I'm not mistaken, like 2 to 3,000 words a day. And I think that that's a pretty good number to shoot for, is like 2,000 words. But like even he says in his that on writing book, 1,000 words a day. Because even if you just do 1,000 words a day, because everybody types at different speeds, everybody has different things going on, the way that they write. Um, but the point, they might be going back and revising as they go. But the point is that if you can at least do 1,000 words a day, it might take someone 3 or 4 hours. It might take someone 6 hours. You never know. But the point is, if you can at least do that, then in 3 months you've written a novel. If you're looking at like 100,000 word novel, um, in 3 months you've got something. And if you go, you know, for a bigger novel like a fantasy novel, maybe 4 months, and you're looking at 120,000 words. That's 4 to 5 months. You've got a really good sized fantasy novel. So, those are good numbers to shoot for. I don't really know of anyone. Sanderson is getting up there because he is very prolific and he's putting out a lot of good stuff. But Kevin J. Anderson is one of the most prolific people. I mean, he's done like 160 novels in a 30-year career. It's a ridiculous amount of work, and he has reliably written best-selling content. It's not just been like hit and miss. I mean, he's worked in Star Wars, he's worked in the Dune series, he's worked on these other projects, for other companies. Um, so I don't know. It just kind of caught me off guard where this person was like bragging about doing 8,000 words, and I just his Twitter, Kevin J. Anderson's Twitter, was just the comment he made was like, "Did you really hit that? If so, that's very impressive." Where he's kind of like, "Really? Okay, if you did, that's amazing because I consider myself like one of the most prolific people out there, and I only do 4,000 words a day." But he also edits every day. So if that other person is only writing, and that's all they do. They don't answer emails, they don't edit, they don't do any of the other things, then sure, I guess 8,000 words a day is possible. But man, I know for me, just because I have all these other things that I do, I can't do 8,000 words a day. It's not possible. I don't even think I've ever had like a day when I've done 8,000 words on a project. I know I've had a couple of days when I did around 6,000 words, but those days are a long time ago. Um, like when I was first writing Echoes of the Past, the first book in the Saga of Leucemia, when I first started working on those chapters back in, 2008, I think it was. Um, there was some days when I wrote a whole chapter in a day, and those are like 6,000 word chapters. So I mean, I definitely had those days, but it has not happened for a long time. And that was, way back then at the very beginning of my writing career when I didn't have all these other projects going and I wasn't doing social media. I wasn't doing marketing and all this other stuff, and I wasn't, so involved in all these other projects. So 8,000 words, phew, that's a lot. But it just got me that the bragging thing was the note I left in my notes where it was like, bragging, because it's like this person was like, look at me, I did 8,000 words. And I think it's great to have goals that are achievable, but I thought it was funny that a very successful New York Times best-selling author tweeted back. It was like, really? Did you really do 8,000 words? Because if you did, that's freaking impressive. He was like, it's kind of like calling out that humble brag and being like, nah, okay. Number 4 on my list. Mondays and MMORPGs. First episode is live later today. I'm gonna go look at YouTube real quick because I don't even know what time that goes out today. Excuse me. Let's look at what time that goes out. 10 a.m. So 10 a.m. Central, that'll be going out. So here in a few hours, because this will probably go up around 7 a.m. by the time I get recorded and get it uploaded. Um, that'll go out 10 a.m. So look forward to that. We started off with we thought we were gonna have 4 co-hosts, a total of 4 people on the show. One of the individuals had to drop out because of life and kids and everything else, which is fine. Um, we're hoping that she will be back on the show for some guest episodes later on down the pipeline because there are some specific episodes when we first met up to brainstorm. Um, she came up with some really good ideas, and there are some episodes that really need to have um, a female to talk about because there is a unique perspective to be had, and there's also some things that have the way there's Gamergate and all this other stuff, and you really need someone to come in and talk about that with authority. And as a older white guy, I can't necessarily speak on those topics with authority. I don't have the right to do that. I can definitely talk about some of those things as an outsider, but I can't necessarily talk about them from firsthand experience. It's also here's a good example of something I can talk about somewhat with authority, but I still am not. So I'm married to a Mexican, um, and I have witnessed her, um, having racism portrayed against her, not to the level that people in the United States, like Mexicans who live in the United States. I've seen some really bad stuff happen there. But even just in our times traveling and going places and spending time in the United States, I have seen people who didn't necessarily think they were being racist, nevertheless being racist or prejudiced against her because she's Mexican and doesn't speak English as her first language. Um, and there's just all of these suspicions and things that are cast at Mexicans who are in the United States by a certain group of people who just automatically assume that every Mexican is, an illegal, is a burden on the healthcare system, a burden on the education system, stealing jobs, blah 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 blah. And I can say that I know I can speak on those things, given the fact that I am Spanish speaking. I have a residency in Mexico, permanent residency. I'm married to a Mexican. I live in Mexico. I know the struggle of Mexican people. I've worked with Mexicans in construction for many years, and then being married to a Mexican now for years. And there are things that I can speak on within that realm of prejudice and racism and stuff, but I've still never had it happen to me. So I can't necessarily speak on that with any authority in the same way that my wife can speak on those subjects. Because even though I've been there, I've been through it with her, I've witnessed it, I've been involved in dealing with it, you still can't be an authority on the subject unless you've walked a mile in that person's shoes. And that's something that, you know, putting social justice warriors aside for a minute, putting cancel culture aside for a minute, there's just a lot of stuff that as a older white guy I can't talk about, you know. Um, so yeah. Anyway, there are still some amazing episodes in the pipeline, and we're going to be hopefully having that co-host come back and do some of the specific episodes. But that aside, we still have three amazing hosts. I'm one of them. Latida. But we have two other amazing co-hosts, which you're going to be introduced to later today. And the first couple of episodes that we recorded last Tuesday, we've got a basic introduction episode where we're going to be talking about MMORPGs. That's today. What got us into the genre, etc., and how that's influenced us as players and as people who got involved in building our own MMORPGs. Then the next episode, which is coming out next week, is pretty cool. It's on managing expectations, and we're talking about that for both the player perspective and the developer's perspective on how to manage expectations of people, and how people should manage expectations from game companies and so on and so forth. So that'll be a fun episode to do. And then we've got tomorrow. On Tuesdays is when we're recording these episodes. So Tuesday we're going to be jumping in and recording the next two episodes. And we've got some pretty hot topics that we're recording tomorrow. And we've got basically a 4-hour chunk, I think, set aside. The first two episodes we did are just over an hour long, but we've set aside 4 hours so that if we ever reach the 2-hour mark, we've got time to do two episodes every week. That's the goal. But if we ever get to a point where we do three in one Tuesday session, that'll be cool. But we're recording those on Tuesdays. Those are coming out every Monday, so stay tuned to that because that'll be later on today. And number 5 on my list is your prerequisite Project Draman update. Also, I'm going to start wearing earrings again soon. I haven't worn earrings for years, and my wife was like, "You should start wearing earrings again with your beard and everything else." And I was like, "Okay." So I actually went out and bought these cool, like, feather earrings the other day. I'm not going to wear the pair, but I will wear one at some point. And I'm ordering some. I found some really cool clockwork earrings on Amazon. So you'll see that at some point in the near future. Don't freak out. Be like, "Did you just get your ears pierced?" No, actually, if you've never paid attention, I'm actually double pierced on each ear. Years ago, when I first got out on my own, I went and got my ears pierced and did double earrings for a very long time, and then eventually moved the lower ones to gauged earrings. And I used gauged, not very big. I don't even remember, like 12 gauge or something, 8 gauge. I think I eventually got up to like an 8 gauge. I think it's been so long. Let me make sure I'm not speaking into my butt. 8 gauge earring. No, I didn't go to 8. 8's way too big. I did 12s, I think was the biggest I ever went. I'm looking at 8s going, no, my uncle had 8s, I remember at the time. But I did 12s. Anyway, but even after, I remember I wore 12s for several years, and then sometime in my early 20s, I just stopped wearing them because wearing gauged earrings drags your lobes down, and just quit wearing them. And over the course of 20 years of not wearing earrings, everything just basically closed up and you can still see the holes. But I just out of whim, Chris was like, "You should do this." So I did. So we bought earrings the other day and they went right in. I mean, it's they're still open. It's just they look like they're completely closed. So um, yeah. Anyway, um, Project Ramid update. We're steamrolling, man. It's good. We've got some cool internal goals set. I mentioned those in Discord. We're trying to we have a milestone that we're shooting for July 1st. And originally, when we started the project, we weren't going to set any milestones yet. We were going to wait and see how things were going. But we managed to start making enough headway, by the end of the first month that we were like, let's just go ahead and set a goal. Now, it gives us something to shoot for. If we miss it, we miss it. But if not, excuse me, it's there, and we're doing good now. On my brother's side, a lot of the progress he's been allowed to make. I say allowed because the weather has been really crappy where he's lived. So his day job, which is running the excavator, he's got the ranch, and then you know things are really heavy during the winter months because you have to take care of the animals. But now that spring is there, you have to spend less time in the animals because they can be grazing and everything else. There are still times when you got to go out and vaccinate and everything else, but for the most part, you can kind of just check on them every day and make sure that nobody's sick, and you can go a week, couple weeks sometimes without needing to necessarily do anything before you have to go out there and maybe catch a sick one and doctor it up. But his running the excavator, it's just been raining, and it's post snow season, so everything's melting and rain, 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 rain. So it's just mud, and he can't run the machine when there's mud. So he's been able to get a good 30 hours a weekend or so on the adventure game component of Project Drummond. And he's made a ton of progress. The last two updates, last week's update and then yesterday's update, adventure game updates number 4 and number 5 on the Patreon. Uh, yeah, it's pretty amazing. We basically have got the entire first 5 scenes completely gray boxed now. And the next step is to move in and start working on getting objects clickable and working on some of the actual systems of the game. And then we've been making a list of assets. The hard part was deciding, what kind of art style we wanted to go with, and looking at what's available in the Unreal Store, and then, looking at things that we can, modify and work on ourselves. So we've kind of got our art style narrowed down now, and we've got a list of assets that we're going to be going through and finalizing, and that'll be something we do over the next week or two, as he works towards that July goal of having a playable demo, which is the first 5 scenes, and we're hoping for like a 2 to 3 hour playable demo. And then on my front, I'm working on um, the the outline for book 1, which I've got about I'm up to chapter 13 now. Um, I had hoped to have the outline completely done um, by the end of March, but I switched gears a little bit because once we decided to set the milestone, I put the core rulebook and the campaign module higher up on the list than the novel work. And the reason for that is because at the same time that we have that playable demo out, um, we want the first draft of the core rulebook done and the first draft of the campaign module done so that we can immediately jump into the live play sessions on Roll20 and YouTube with our play testers, starting in July. And then once that's going on, I'll be working on the book more starting in July. So in the meantime, I've put a lot of work into. I'm almost done with the core rulebook backstories and stuff. I've cranked out the Elven Civil War. I've cranked out the Quantum Wars. I've cranked out basically. I gave it a generic name of the Second Age, which is not what it is, but it's just from the end of the Elven Civil War up to the current time. Um, that was pretty much this whole weekend, was getting all of those completely wrapped up in their first draft format, and the only thing I've left to do is the factions. So I actually have to do the faction explanations for like the church and the mage circle and the Tower of High Mages and all this other stuff. Um, Once that's done, I then just got to write the introduction, the how to play section, and then it's just rules and coming up with putting the rule sets in there, and then probably a short, spell list, things of that nature. So that's rolling along nicely. And then Chris, of course, last Sunday, her Wacom One tablet got here, so she's been getting up to speed with just transitioning from doing physical drawing and painting to actually doing it in a digital format. So we've done some TikTok videos of her getting up to speed with things. Um, so that's her April objective, is to finish doing tutorials and create a few pieces of digital art as she goes through these tutorials and figures out all the different tools of these apps, figure out which app she wants to use the most. She's working with Clip Paint Studio and Photoshop right now, um, trying to figure out which one she wants to use more. Anyway, that's kind of a brief version of the Project Dragon update. I don't want to take up too much time. And also, I got to wrap this episode up because we got to go grocery shopping. So, this is a shorter episode. I made it to 30 minutes, but I'm not going to do a 45-minute episode today. So, don't forget, if you haven't already done so, make sure to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon to the updates for all the future content that we do. Check out all the links below to go to Discord, to check out Patreon to pick up a subscription there, to check out the updates that we're doing over on TikTok, so on and so forth. And hopefully we'll either see you here in the next video, in a comment here on this video, over in Discord, or over on the Patreon, where we have all the cool stuff that happens every single week for Project Draymond, and everything else that we're doing. So thanks for tuning in, and I will see everybody in the next episode next Monday. And don't forget all the other cool stuff that's coming down the pipeline.